All right, welcome to Sonic Vision's podcast, episode 14. We are joined today by Ko and Silverish. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Very good.
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's just get into it. What have you guys been listening to or enjoying, and what are you guys looking forward to in terms of hi-fi gear?
If you don't mind, I'd like to go first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I succumbed to gear acquisition syndrome, as we all are familiar with, uh, and I took
Hmm.
delivery of the new Meze Lyric, and
Oh,
I have a
nice.
new yeah, and I have a new Dapp in the P6 Pro Obsidian, which I'll love to go into more detail during the Co's Corner segment. So
Yep.
I've been enjoying those gears, the Lyric especially, as it has that tuning that I really like. It's a nice step change from the Empyrean. But yeah, gear I've been enjoying a lot. I would say I've been using the DMTZ1 a lot more as I put my M30 up for sale, but it may be selling soon. Cross my fingers. And I've been using the Mason Fable sound quite a bit in recent days, and I've been loving that combo. That bone conduction, the way they've tuned that set is just fantastic, and I've been enjoying every minute of it.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about that. What about you, Silverish?
No new gear to speak of. I've pretty much been sticking to the same stuff for a while now. Almost the last thing I got was the iFi IESL back in May, and that it's not really something I listened to. It enhanced the whole setup.
Right. All right. I think Zach's coming in a second here. I continue to listen to the. Hey Zach, how's it going?
G'day, mate. How are you?
Good, man. So yeah, we just started. So what's going on in Zach world? What are you listening to, and what are you looking forward to?
Been one of those this is like I guess periods in my life where I haven't had a lot of time for music. We started watching Westworld. I know we're a bit late to the party, so every night that I usually listen to music, I'm sort of hanging out with my partner watching TV. So other than I had the DCS Vivaldi DAC into review last week, and I'm returning that. I'm returning that today. But yeah, I had been listening to that a little bit. Can't say I was overjoyed by that DAC. Really, it wasn't amazing, especially for the price point. But things I'm looking forward to. I guess probably weird stuff. Like there's this guy Devin Jazz who's doing some DIY horn stuff that he's trying to do flat pack horn speakers to the general public. He's trying to make I guess esoteric sort of builds and stuff more available and more popular. So yeah, interested in that sort of stuff because it's not always about the high end. I guess it's always about stuff that sounds good that doesn't cost the earth. So yeah, just different changes in the market with the DIY and flat pack and that sort of stuff is kind of interesting me at the moment.
What didn't you like about Vivaldi?
Um, Look, it was very polished sounding. I guess I use the term like hi-fi sounding. I guess where it's like polished and refined, but not really. Just, again, not a super engaging DAC. I guess I recently reviewed the Hollow May, and I found it's probably a more well-rounded DAC, but again, kind of lacking any real engagement factor. I'd say the May is several steps better than the Vivaldi, which is at I guess you shouldn't look at the price differences because this stuff is all 3 or 4 times the cost of each other, and they're beyond most audiophiles kind of budgets. But yeah, the DCS is very feature heavy, very well built. But overall, I didn't really enjoy the sound much. I would not bother with it in my system. I left a review on SBAF, and I'm happy to post it on the Sonic Visions blog as well, since you sometimes share a little bit of my stuff. But yeah, it wasn't that great, so I didn't really want to talk too much about it and poo poo because the dealer is a member here now, and yeah, but yeah, the review's up and it's not very positive.
Yeah, if you could cross post that, that'd be great. But yeah, it's quite shocking that you, yeah, sometimes you don't want to kind of factor in price, but it's hard to get away from it when there's these huge sums of money that are involved. And then when you compare it to something like May, and you prefer May, that's really interesting, and speaks to potentially the value of May, because it seems to me that May is kind of universally loved. I haven't heard anybody yet really criticize May very harshly.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of I want to say almost groupthink with the May. I don't know if it's how to say. I think there's a lot of circle jerking going about the May. It's a good product. It's a really good product. Is it a giant slayer? I don't think so. I think Bracasti and stuff are still doing better stuff than them. I still prefer the Rocknar. But yeah, it's technically it's very good. The NOS works quite well. I think you have to kind of use the HQ player because the onboard filters are really kind of garbage on it, and NOS is a bit kind of soft and boring sounding. So you have to run HQ player and do your upsampling and stuff north of the DAC, which is a bit of an unusual situation. It means you have to use HQ player, which is like you got to tinker with stuff before it even gets to your DAC, and then people are using DDCs, and it's so hard to actually say what do you think of a DAC, or are you saying what do you think of HQ player, what do you think of this DDC that you're using to off ramp to the DAC, so I think there's a lot of factors that are starting to be thrown around, and I don't know if May's not just a plug in and play. Well, it is like a plug in and play DAC, but if you really want to max out its potential, you really have to mess around with it on a level that I think a lot of audiophiles aren't comfortable with. Which is, I guess, one of the big drawbacks for me, is that you have to use HQ player to really take it from being what is probably a mediocre DAC to being an outstanding DAC. A lot of people would disagree with that, but I don't know. My expectations of DACs are a little bit different. But yeah, I'd say you need to really play with HQ player and utilize all of the front end stuff to maximize May, and that for me was a deal breaker. That's why I would never bother owning one, even in a secondary system. It's just too much of a drawback for me.
So it seems like the main players in the non-ultra expensive category are the Rockna and the M1, the Bracasti M1, I guess, or M1.
I think the M1 The M1SC is good, but I mean, Bifrost 2 and stuff, they're excellent DACs, you don't have to spend the earth, and 99% of people aren't going to need, or aren't even going to be able to tap into the potential of a mega DAC, honestly.
Right,
if you're running high-end headphones, you could probably stop at, a 2K DAC, and pretty much, you hear little differences here and there, but, if you really want to go the distance, I'm still adamant that you need to go to speakers to really justify, the good staging and imaging and stuff a little bit better. But I still think that, I would rather, rather than a $10,000 headphone system, a $2,000 speaker system.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's still what I want people to try and take away from this, because I get so many messages oh, I've got this RAL SR1, what $20,000 DAC do you think I should buy? And I'm like, I think you should buy speakers, or if you can't do that, buy a house and then buy speakers. And I don't want to be that old guy in the corner yelling at everyone about buying speakers, but it's just becoming that way when I see what people are spending on fucking headphones. It's crazy. Sorry, mind the language. It's just crazy what people are spending on headphones these days. And I honestly think they could better it for, a fraction of the price of what they're paying.
Yeah, I keep getting reminded of that Tyler's Eclectic Susvara stream, and somebody wrote that feeling when a $500 speaker sounds better than your 6K headphone, and yeah,
exactly it. Yeah, there are still a few players in the cheaper realms. I'd say. I think you're used to running the Terminator.
Yeah, I still have that.
Terminator with new boards still in my top 10 for DACs. I think some of the pro audio stuff is punching really hard. I still really like the Convert 2, even though it's not totally neutral. But I mean, there's other pro audio DACs that punch really well for $1 or $2 grand. Even the Bifrost and the Matrix, I would say, are better than the DCS Bartok. It's a $20,000. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. You're saying you like the Bifrost more than Bartok?
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible.
it's just look, it's just not engaging. It's just not that great. I prefer the Bifrost to the PS Audio DS stuff. I prefer the Bifrost to Dave. I would rather a Bifrost than a Dave. You know,
Wow.
if I had an entry level speaker system, I would prefer a Bifrost to a Dave.
Wow. Wow.
But
That's something.
I know. I mean, these are controversial opinions, but I mean, I've had this stuff, I've played with it, and that's just how I feel. So,
Well,
I mean, a lot of
the thing, Zach, is that your name is you're one of the heavy hitters. People know you, people respect you. So for you to say these things, I mean, people should take notice and take it seriously, and obviously listen for themselves. But it's not like you're some random person. Like you know what you're talking about.
yeah. But like I said, it's a preference thing and a synergy thing and the rest of it. And like,
Right.
if you want to, I think Dave can be an ultra DAC in a really good headphone system. But then I've already just told you what I think about ultra high end headphone systems, you know. But you
Right.
plug Dave into a decent speaker system, and I'm like, well, you know, I feel like the Bifrost 2 has, you know, better tone and timbre, like just outright. It's like less thin and 2D, and you know, it's just things that I prefer the Bifrost 2 to, but that's my preferences. People might prefer the clarity and, you know, the detail on the Dave.
Right.
But, you know, whereas the Bifrost is kind of more of a tone and timbre DAC. But anyway, for me, the DCS Bartok was a really big disappointment. It's got a lot of hype. I'm probably one of the first people to negatively review it. And even my May review, I think I gave it like I said it was the fifth best DAC I've heard, and I was like, that for me is a huge compliment. Like it's in the list with like, you know, Boulder 2120, Esoteric D1, you know, DCS Vivaldi. I'm saying it's better than all of those, and people are still messaging me like, you're wrong. Like this DAC is better than what you're saying. It's like, well, I'm saying it's pretty damn good. Like I think it's punching, but you know, it's for me, it's lacked that last little bit of engagement. You know, the HQ player thing annoyed me, so. You know, I think a lot of people just like it in NOS and then plug it in. And if you do that, I would say it's not in my top 10 DACs. If you just use it in NOS mode without HQ player, I'd say it's probably below the Terminator. It's better than the Bifrost there, but not better than the Terminator. Not better than probably even a Yigi 1 in a decent system. I'd say Yigi 1 would probably beat Hollow in most speaker systems. But, you know,
Hmm.
people... And that's without HQ player and without all the upsampling and tinkering that you have to do to make Hollow really do its thing.
Right. Right. Okay. Interesting.
Anyway, that's enough rambling about DAX. We haven't even started. We're already rambling about DAX.
No, it's good discussion. Juan, welcome. What have you been listening to and looking forward to?
What have I been listening to? Some really, 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 really bad KZ headphones. They just released some like Bluetooth headphones, and I got to try the pre-release, and I have it, and I was using it on the plane, and 20 minutes into the flight, the noise canceling started making like really loud farting noises into my ear on the left channel, and it hurt. So.
Sorry, Juan, but do
Yeah.
you mind turning?
Excellent, very excellent quality from KZ as usual. Yeah, and then what am I expecting? Some wacky cost headphones that are like marked down quite a bit.
Juan, do you mind turning down your microphone a little bit?
What if I just speak further away?
Yeah, that can work.
Okay, this is fine.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I have a Cost SP 330 and SP 540 coming in because they were like $30 each on Amazon. So they measure like crap, but I want to mess with them.
All right, all right. For myself, I'm still again mainly listening to Elekid and 650. I just started getting back into the 800S, and yeah, initially, the decrease in the bass and just the overall tone being shifted up is quite a bit of an adjustment that you have to get used to. But I'm liking the added clarity that I'm getting. And I've been lately. I keep doing kind of comparisons between my my HE9 and my Elekid tube amp, and yeah, it's surprising. Like when the HE9 is fully warmed up after like 4 or 5 hours and it's really hot, it's surprisingly good. Like it holds its own against the tube amp. The tube amp is better. But for certain songs, you're kind of surprised that the HE9 is in the same league at least, or somewhat kind of approaches the L kit. But having said that, my 300B tubes on my L kit are apparently like very, very basic and entry level, so I'm sure it can still go a lot further. And I also don't have like the super high end caps. I have like one down from the best V caps, so that's I guess what you have to keep in mind. But yeah, lately I've just been focusing on headphone listening. I haven't been doing any near field or midfield, so I gotta get back into that. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. All right, let's start it off. Before we get into bone conduction, let's just start it off with talking about the room and the sonics of a room in a two-channel system. So for those of you who enjoy two-channel, what are the hallmarks of the sound that you hear when a room is really well dialed in, or when a room is really good, or if you go and listen to a room and it's a really good room, what do you listen for and what do you notice sonically?
You don't hear the room. That is the ultra goal.
Yeah, and
that's right.
I'd almost like to add that a lot of the benefits people say they get from headphones over speakers, you start to notice they come back.
What do you mean, Silver?
I mean, stuff ends up coming behind you and to your sides, even though the speakers are in front of you.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. They like the surround imaging kind of thing.
Stuff that you usually. Yeah.
Go, man.
Oh, that's stuff that just usually you'd only usually hear on headphones because on lower end speaker systems or in a bad room, it's all just in front of you, and the furthest to the side it goes is where the speaker is.
I don't know if it's a factor of very good cohesion or good drivers or good design, but I really like when you don't hear the cabinet, the speaker, the driver. Like you're like looking at the speaker and it doesn't look like it's making any sound, and the sound seems to be coming from like between the speakers. Like when there's like a vocalist or something standing in the middle of the stage, and you're like, how the fuck, like, how is this like sound so in the center? Whereas like I know that the sound should be coming from these things because of physics. But like for some reason it's like so locked in the middle. I really enjoy a really tight center lock stage. I'm not too big on width or whatever, as long as the imaging is tight. But I really like a really center locked image where I can't notice the speaker. I can't hear any cabinet resonance or reverb. I can't even see the driver moving, and the sound seems to be coming from like behind and in the middle of the speaker, like between the speakers rather than from the drivers themselves. I think that's like the hallmark of well-designed speakers in a room that's not really imparting itself too much. If your placement, your room's too narrow, your speakers are quite close to the walls, you're going to get those earlier reflections that are going to, cause all kinds of issues, whereas it's, time alignment or nulls or modal issues because your room's too short for some of the frequencies to fully, do their full range. But no, there's a lot of things that you'll hear in a badly designed room, but in a good room, I feel like you should just hear the sound that you're playing. Ideally, you wouldn't hear the room. We shouldn't even notice the speakers, really. You should just be enjoying the music. Sound like Nick.
I think what I've found is in a good room, you should be hearing a lot of depth in the song, like that Z-axis, because that's a little bit difficult to get with headphones or fully appreciate. And further, you should be able to feel the bass frequencies. It shouldn't be dominating, everything that you're hearing, unless that's what you're going for. Unless you're going for that, very subwoofer focused sound. But you should be feeling a lot of the frequencies, and you shouldn't be listening to, as you said earlier, a lot of room reflections, because room reflections can confuse you, and it can also ruin a lot of recordings, and it may completely not be representative of what you should be hearing from the recordings in the first place. So tactility and I guess soundstage depth is really important for me when I judge a room.
Yeah, those reflections from a bad room, they can actually really mess up clarity. Just that weird time delay from like something coming off a back wall, not coming at your ears at the same time as what's coming from the speaker. That really messes things up. And if you have like I have a living room, my parents' house. I don't live there anymore, but whenever I have speakers there, it's like, because it's an open floor plan, you have one wall that's just cabinets, and then on the other side there's no wall. It's just going off into the kitchen. It's like another extra 10 feet or so, or something like that. And so the image is totally off. You can hear the misalignment, and yeah, imaging gets pretty wacky. But then first is like even in an ideal situation, like literally just having. I mean, when it comes to reflections, not necessarily for room acoustics, but like if you have a space with like only floor reflections, like literally just having speakers out in a field, you'd get that really precise center image and perfect clarity that hopefully you can try and recreate in a proper room. So.
Have you guys ever encountered a room and a system where the room was not very good? Maybe it was like some kind of like a bedroom or a basement or whatever it is, not good, not symmetrical, no treatment, but the system still sounded so amazing, like it sounded so impressive. Have you ever encountered something like that?
My
I
own
remember.
system, all of those
Sorry,
things.
go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, like it's pretty wacky, but it's pretty much being carried solely by the Studio 590s. So nice bass.
Also,
Oh, sorry.
I like the same old room, but only after I moved. After I moved in my new small bedroom, it somehow just has the perfect spacing and everything.
Yeah, small rooms are nice because there's not as much space for reflections to happen exactly, at least in lower frequencies. And you can still, if the room is small enough, then you can just get more bass extension out of that, which is pretty neat.
But don't you get massive nulls because your like wavelength on your your
Yeah.
long wavelengths on your low frequencies just kind of cancel each other out. So you measure the room and you have like this massive 60 hertz null.
Just sit in the right spot. I don't know. It depends, but just
You're right though. You're right though. I remember hearing a system that Line Magnetic had in Singapore, and the room would have been like, I don't know, like 10 by 10 feet, and they'd put these like huge, like massive horn speakers with like huge horn loaded like subs basically.
Okay.
And the bass was just nuts. And I was like sitting like 5 feet from these because that's like how far you could sit back from them. And yeah, it was just an awesome sound. And they have a lot of that in Japan as well, where they have like, 43, 55, some of the biggest speakers you can buy. And they had them like edge to edge, like touching. Like there would have been 2 feet between, the mid drivers. Yet the sound was just insane. And the room would have been no bigger than, by 12 by 12 feet. Like it's tiny, tiny. Like the speakers barely fit in this space. Like the speakers are like 6 feet wide and they're like touching.
Yeah, stuff like that. Also, if you get the room small enough, smaller than like, I don't know, the wavelength of the resonance frequency of your speaker, then you'll just get perfect extension, and you probably won't end up with such room modes.
Just doing near field listening with full size speakers. It's just
that's what I do.
That's the real end game.
Just like I have a little office. I used to have like Studio 580s just next to my desk. It was pretty nutty.
Hey Nick, welcome. How you doing?
I'm good. I made it. I'm cleaning an ice machine, but I got lucky. I'm finally here. Good to see everybody. We got the regular gang and a guest here. Looks like Silvish.
I've been here once before, but yeah. Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see the rest of you. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'm going to go look at the topics and see where we're at.
Yeah, Nick. So the question right now is, what are things you listen for in a very good room? So if a room is well constructed and treated, what does the system typically sound like?
Oh, I want to, and I've experienced it. I want to close my eyes and see the upright bass, just not quite front, middle, to the left and back, drums all the way in the back, trumpets center and to the right, just whoever else is in the room. Yeah, it's I want to be able to feel where the musicians are in the room and where the music is coming from. I want to experience a table side seat at a small venue. When it's that type of music, that's what I want. I want to feel the presence of the entertainers.
Nice. One thing I notice when I listen to in various rooms that I've listened to is the big rooms tend to sound very, very good, and the big rooms that I've been in had little or no treatment, and some of them were just like speakers in a corner of just this massive room, but I don't know what it was. I guess the fact that the walls were so far away that there were that lessened reflections, but the imaging was so impressive in these big rooms, and the soundstage so vast that it was really, really impressive. So I think just having a big room, obviously, and I'm not saying a big room filled with glass and reflective surfaces, but like a big room with like a carpet and some objects in it. That alone tends to, I think, make systems sound very good as long as the placement is not too bad, in my experience. And then I've also experienced bad rooms with incredible equipment in them sound amazing. So when I auditioned the Magical M2s with a Luxman front end, I think it was TT2 DAC. Those speakers are unlike any speakers I've ever heard, where they would play these songs with these bass notes, and you could hear the bass right next to your ear as if you're wearing headphones. It was just like this weird effect where I could hear a fluttering of the bass right at my ears, and then I played that track on other systems, and I never heard that. And the room was terrible. It was like a basement. It had a 7-foot high ceiling. It was asymmetrical with a opening on one side. It was like basically the dealer's house, and it was in his basement. So I think sometimes really impressive equipment can kind of overwhelm deficiencies of a room. Now, if you put that system in a really good room, then I'm sure it would be like just amazing. But it's just interesting, the dynamics there between the quality of the room and the quality of the equipment.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I wonder what that bass effect was just the room itself doing interesting things.
Yeah, most definitely. The room, when it comes to speakers, the room is the most important instrument in the room. On those large rooms with mediocre equipment, you're lacking the close reflections. You're getting the lack of second reflection. You're getting the sound directly, and the reflected sound is so dead and far away that it's not registering. You're not actually hearing it, and that's why lesser gear in a larger room that's modestly treated. I mean, it still has to have some, like you said, some things in the room to help, keep it from being so live and active and reflective. But outside of that, in the larger room, and you can get that effect with smaller rooms. You just have to treat it more, and you need to treat for what's wrong with the room. You can't just slap a bunch of things in there and hope you get it right. That's the odds of that happening are rare to none. But actually taking some readings and putting in what you need in a smaller room, you can make it sound like a cavern almost.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. Excellent. So the next topic is this whole concept of bone conduction, and this is something that has been brought to the podcast by Co. And I know Juan had some comments on bone conduction. So first of all, Co, can you start off by just explaining what bone conduction is and what it does and your experience with it?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if I can adequately define bone conduction to a satisfactory degree. Disclaimer: I'm on my second glass of wine, so it is what it is. So bone conduction, I guess the principle is you have a material that is vibrated between. Okay, I'll just describe how Unique Melody does it. They have it's sort of like a sandwich design. So they have a board, a vibration board in the middle, and then they have these two, I guess, polarity plates, different polarities, and then they create this vibration on the vibration board, and then that vibration will then travel. Theoretically, it should travel through your ear and then to your throughout your ear, and that will create. It should create sounds that you feel rather than you hear. And when you use a unique melody IAM, that translates to density and weight for the music, particularly in the vocals. Now, Empire Ears has a different technology on how they implement bone conduction. And bone conduction in itself is it's a primitive technology. It's been around for many, many years. I think nearly 20, 30 years. It's been around for a while. But it's been getting into high-end boutique IAMs just recently. And Unique Melody, their approach to bone conduction is to enhance the, I guess, vocalist music and Asian sort of, tastes in audiophile music. Whereas Empire Ears, they use bone conduction to enhance the reproduction of bass frequencies. So I think in the words of Jack Vang, the intention for their bone conduction was to create the bass frequency reverberation that you'd get in a nightclub. And I think he mentioned some nightclub he visited in Asia, and he really wanted to reproduce that. So that's sort of the gist of it, and it creates air, and it creates this, this tonal density and this weight that it's really hard to describe. If you read a review of any of these bone conduction sets, it's a bit tricky to describe. But once you hear it, either you love it or you just don't care for it. And I think the prices of getting into bone conduction is certainly coming down. If you look at Mess 2, Mess 2 is currently on discount to $1,200 on Black Friday, and Empire Ears Evo is around $2,900, $3,000. And I think going forward in the future, you're going to see a lot of IEMs embrace bone conduction. And in my personal experience, I find that IEMs that really squeeze every last drop out of bone conduction, I think surpass headphones in sound quality and sound immersion. So I do prefer IEMs like Mason Fable Sound over high-end headphones like HD800S, Susvara, and Verite Closed. And I do prefer bone conduction IEMs over headphones. Now, I'm curious as to where this will go with headphones. I don't know how they'll implement bone conduction for that. But if they do, it'll be really cool. And I'm very excited for the future of HeadFi in terms of bone conduction.
All right, fair enough. Juan, any thoughts on the bone conduction topic? Okay, I think Juan stepped out. Yeah, no, to me it's very fascinating, and I can see how that would, as you said, it gives you some of the tactility that you lose when you go to headphones from 2-channel. So that is always awesome, and can enhance the low end. Is it mainly at play in the low end, or does it have any?
Yeah, so it depends on the manufacturer. So for Unique Melody, it's in the mids. Generally. So they use a full range bone conduction driver. It goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz.
Right.
So they call it a full range refinement bone conduction. But I find that it really comes alive in the mids.
Wow.
And again, this is tuned for Chinese audiophile music tastes, and they love female vocalists. And so they've tuned it just for that. Empire Ears, they tune it for. It does work. You can sort of hear it in the mids and everything, but I think they tune it for bass frequency reproduction and for bass room reflections. And it's a very cool implementation. I mean, say what you will about the way Evo's tuned, but the way that Evo does bass and the way they reproduce that bass room reflection, it's very convincing, and I truly love it.
Now, I need to ask. On Mest, I'm sure you're more familiar with this than I am. Where exactly is the IEM making contact to, conduct into your phone, into your skull, essentially? Where's it doing that?
Well, it should be going from the shell into your ear, so you should be getting a good fit with the IEM.
What part of the ear? I'm asking.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's on their schematic somewhere.
Okay, yeah. So this is an interesting thing because. A typical headphone line-out shouldn't actually have enough voltage to push a bone conduction motor enough to actually, vibrate through your skull with with the, because this is mostly the biggest surface area of contact is going to be mostly around your concha bowl, which is essentially just a piece of skin over a piece of cartilage, and I don't think it's very well coupled to your bone. So to actually push enough vibration to, especially to produce anything, lower into bass frequencies, let alone, but basically, you're not going to be able to push a motor hard enough to actually be felt through your skull and then conduct back into your ear and overcome all of the damping there. Okay, you cannot get enough amplitude out of that with the motor that's in these IEMs. It's just not going to happen. It's way too inefficient. Okay, and I think for the most part, it's generally agreed that this is just a marketing gimmick on the part of UM.
I mean, I'm sure there is some marketing at play, but I've gone through a lot of high-end IEMs, and nothing quite sounds like what they do. I'm not really
it'll
sure.
sound good, yes, but
Yeah.
like this, what you're hearing, it's not that bone conduction motor. I can practically guarantee that. Now, maybe with the, if you can mess around with much more efficient, IEM drivers to get a way better effect than whatever they're doing.
Well, that's
And
interesting.
now where bone conduction has actual application is when you have, dedicated dedicated essentially bone conduction headphones like the aftershocks models, which make contact onto your temple, the temple of your skull, and then you have high voltage pushing a large, actually quite efficient motor, and then that is able to overcome your skid and fat and whatnot, and then vibrates your skull enough for it to conduct into your inner ear and move that little membrane in there. But an IEM will not do that. It's simply just maybe it's causing some other resonance in the enclosure at most, but for it to actually be bone conducting, it's not going to happen in this form factor.
Yeah, it could possibly be doing something inside the IEM. That's certainly possible. But from what I've heard and across a lot of different IEMs, there's certainly something to this density that I'm hearing in Unique Melody's bone conduction sets, and I think respectively in Pi ears, that is quite a bit different from anything else I've heard.
Yeah, on the comments of Mest, I do see comments over the like note weights of vocals and whatnot. However, I do also see that the upper mid-range is quite recessed in a way that would make vocals sound a lot thicker than they would on most IEMs.
Yeah, with the way bone conduction is implemented in Mest, they sort of nerfed it compared to the first generation Mest. So to make way for the Mason and I guess Mentor, which will be coming out in a few months, because those higher end tier models rely a lot more on the bone conduction than the Mest does.
Well, the thing is that, like I said, you literally just cannot push enough voltage through that tiny, extremely inefficient what they call bone conduction system, which is effectively not conducting into your bone at all.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, at most, it is just another driver causing some weird resonance at most. But I doubt even that's the case. I mean,
sure. I mean, and what I can do, I can pass your questions on to the Unique Melody CEO and see what he has to say.
Maybe. I don't know. Sure, I guess. It'd be nice to see a response from Unique Melody's management.
Yeah.
But yeah, to my understanding, this is what they're claiming is just not. It's just not. It doesn't work the way that they're claiming.
Maybe that's just like a decoy and works in a different way that they want to keep confidential.
If anything, they'd be using it as just another driver. Although, to my knowledge, it's not even crossed in a way that it would be, actually audible over the other drivers. So.
If it's really not bone conduction, I guess it sort of reminds me when there's a lot of IEMs that claim they're electrostatic when it's something else.
Same exact. Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, same exact thing. Those Electret drivers and IEMs, they're getting better, but the what makes them Electret is well, the reason why you have an Electret is because you literally cannot push enough voltage onto that ESTAT diaphragm to cause the stator to produce much excursion, and in that case you can only get very high frequencies because it's just not efficient enough to create more excursion, which is exactly what's needed in this system for any kind of bass or I mean in most cases even mid-range to be produced audibly on these Electrets. Well, the relegators are just high tweeters, and so maybe something like that could be at play here, where maybe it's doing a little bit of very high frequency vibrations, but that are maybe passing through the shell somehow. But yeah, I don't really think that would be useful.
Sounds like whatever they're doing is benefiting the IEM, but maybe just not.
I think the general case for the sound of the UMS is entirely to do with how the drivers are tuned and how the actual response is.
All right, fair enough. Interesting discussion. I like the scientific aspect of it, and look forward to learning more about this kind of technology. But yeah, I have no doubt that Ko is hearing something very different, and I really trust Ko, and I also respect Juan's tremendous technical knowledge also. So it'll be interesting to learn more about this and see kind of what direction it's going in. As we continue exploring all this. Now, I wanted to get into a bit of networking. I think we may have talked about this in the past, but I wanted to get everyone's thoughts on networking front ends and how they impact sound. What I mean are things like, well, and actually we have Nick here too, which is perfect. But things like audiophile routers, and then also audiophile, just networked front ends like those like Pi players and like all the other ones, SOTM, those kinds of network players, and then also thoughts on things like taking it a step further at kind of audiophile Ethernet cables, and then also devices that are meant to be like digital, like cleaners or digital to digital devices like the Ether Regen, like things like that. So what are your guys' general thoughts on those kinds of components? And maybe personal experiences too.
If you add enough gold to your Ethernet cable, you'll produce more base extension.
Oh. I'll start off by just saying that, first of all, I do have an audiophile Ethernet cable. I didn't spend a ton on it, but I just like the build quality of it. It was probably like, I think it was like less than $200. So, and I'm not gonna buy any more. I mean, that's the only one I'm gonna buy. I didn't do any extensive testing. I mean, I did kind of briefly compare it to a normal cable. I don't know if I heard any difference. I have had the SOTM 200 Ultra, and I have had the Lumen U1 Mini with a custom power supply, external power supply, and I have the Pi player, and then I have my non-networked front end, the DI20HE. And what I found in my testing and my experimentation, which is very strange to me, is, first of all, I found that network front ends do affect sound. So, for example, if I compare my Lumen to the DI20HE, like there's a definite difference in terms of the network versus the kind of USB based. And then if I compare, I don't know, I don't think I directly compared my Pi to my Lumen, but from my memory, I think there was a difference, because the Lumen was a lot warmer sounding, and it kind of almost smoothed over details compared to the Di20HE and the Pi. The Pi is also closer to in sound to the Di20HE. So I think there is a difference. If you have different network devices, there are differences, at least that I've heard. So that's interesting. You know, why does that affect sound? Or am I just delusional and I'm just hearing things? I don't know.
I think a lot of it's software. I mean, the Pi
Yeah.
is just an open source DIY project, right? So
Look, you know, I don't know if you're actually hearing a difference. I'm not you, but I will say that you know, when it comes to many of these digital interface things, I mean, I don't know, could be some level of compression going on differently, but when it comes to most of these like digital tweaks and stuff, you know, audiophiles come up with, I can almost guarantee you that the change in your mood, if anything, will cause a bigger change in sound than any of these will.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with one on that one, because I think a lot of people right in the digital world are using their front end as a computer or something, and feeding it into a DAC, right? And there are all kinds of power supplies and shit going on inside a PC or a laptop, and the software and the rest of it, and you're dealing with Windows, and even if you run ASIO, it's very hard to actually get like a bit perfect stream off ramped. And even then, it seems to be like, in my experience, if I've run a DDC, which is some sort of digital to digital converter, and whether that's Ethernet or something like that, using different interfaces or even protocols such as USB, AES, I2S seem to sound to me slightly different. And I didn't want that to be true, and I don't understand it completely. But to the point where you can, you know, you switch to an Ethernet, from a noisy computer, and like, sure, it's going to sound better than the USB, even if you're using like a fairly basic Ethernet DDC to even then a box that switches it to AES or USB. There has been a lot of messing around with stuff like Mutech and stuff like that, which deals with basically trying to get a cleaner power supply to whatever you're off ramping from your computer, and also do some clocking off board. And that again seems to have an impact on sound to some people at some level. I'm just starting to sort of mess around in this area, and I mean, I've been looking for a digital streamer for a while. Something that I can use for DLNA or for Rune, and I find that I've had about 5 or 6 of those that I've owned or loaned, and they all sounded different. They all had a different impact on my system. And I mean, some of these manufacturers are probably adding, as Juan mentioned, some level of compression or some level of digital filtering that's happening upstream of the DAC, which is going to impact the sound. And that's going to sound better on some songs and better in some systems, but like, it's actually very hard to get a really clean signal from a PC or laptop. And I think that's why a lot of people got the Pi 2 AES, because it was super simple. It was it didn't have a lot of complex hardware. The software was super basic, so it was a really kind of clean and pure way to off-ramp audio without having to run a PC or laptop, and people are like that. But I mean, other people want, you know, that a Pi 2 AES is a bit too janky, so they want to go to, you know, a box that streams Spotify Tidal, has like really nice GUI and stuff. Which, I mean, the Pi 2 AES GUI is not that great. You know, you have to use like a Linux or Volumnio or whatever it's called, and some people don't love that software, but I don't know. I think it's a growing area of interest in the audiophile community, particularly at the high end, and whether or not it's all psychosomatics and we're all mental, like one says, I don't know. But personally, I've heard differences in different streamers, and that's literally just supposed to be sending zeros and ones to the DAC, and they shouldn't really be changing the sound, you know, a whole bunch. So, but I mean, you can clearly hear differences. Like, I had an Orenda W20 which sounded like thick and slow no matter what I did to it, and I ended up getting rid of it. And I've tried a bunch of different bridges and other things, but you know, it's again trying to find synergy there, and I definitely do think they can impact the sound. I don't know about Ethernet switches and fancy Ethernet cords. Like, honestly, I've had a few $1,000s worth of USB cables come and go, and I run a printer cable most of the time, like a $2 printer cable, and I just don't care about some of the cable memes. I think as long as it works, it works. So there you go. I'm on one side of the spectrum with the streamers, and on the other side of the spectrum with the cables.
So what was that streamer you mentioned? The W20. What was that?
That was an Orenda W20. That was a pretty high-end one. I owned that for a short period and didn't like how it sounded. Orenda, I've had an Aria, an Aries, an Oralic in-house. I've had a Micro Rendu, which is not really a streamer. It's like an Ethernet. It is a Rune. It's not a Rune endpoint. It is a Rune endpoint, not a Rune core. I don't know, I've messed around with a few of these things, and they all sound a little bit different. Like, I've had some experience with the Antipodes products as well, the K50, and again, they all sound different with different systems. So I think this is another point of tinkering for people. And the people I think who are really at the high end at the moment are doing custom. They're getting their own DDCs built with custom power supplies, and they're doing their own clocking again, and they're using custom solutions for their clocking externally as well. And they say that that's the way to go. I haven't gone quite that far off the deep end, but I probably will next year.
I have a feeling that our render was probably doing some digital.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. It was
probably changing an EQ or something.
Yeah, it was like EQing basically. It was like DSP.
Okay, yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
And is what it sounded like. But I mean, it's not supposed to do that. It's just supposed to be like has like a master clock, and it's just supposed to off ramp and be a streamer, right? I've tried off ramps as well. I had some Lynx products. I had a Lynx AES card, which basically would let me get like an ASIO AES output from a PC. And I still had problems with that. I didn't really like how that sounded, so I ditched that. So, I don't know. For me, I keep going back to CD transport, because that to me is like the cleanest and easiest thing that I've had that works, but then it limits me to physical media, and I feel like a boomer. And I do like streaming, and I like the convenience. I like all my music on my hard drive, so I'm on a journey to find the purest sounding streamer or DDC that I can, and I'm probably going to have to build it by the sounds of it.
All right.
Or at least mod the bejeebers out of it.
This has me thinking. I wonder. I mean, who knows? Forgive my ignorance if this isn't the case. But I wonder how many of these $10,000 audiophile streamers are just applying some kind of EQ to sound different to justify their existence to people.
Definitely.
Who want,
I think
like,
a lot of them do. I think a lot of them do, because I think a lot of them tend to have a warm and thick sound, like that, like a kind of euphonic sound, and then you plug that into a DAC that kind of sounds a bit like a typewriter, like something that's a bit etched and strident, and then it kind of evens itself out. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, I fixed my system, I got the streamer, it sounds so good now. And you try and plug it into a more neutral sort of sounding system, or someone who's got references to what a neutral kind of digital output should sound like, and I'm like, yeah, this doesn't sound. This sounds like it's been emphasized in a lot of different ways to try and make it sound more audiophile and more hi-fi. Right. But I do believe that there must be a way to get like a because I have had a lot of trouble with PCs and laptops being noisy, and I seem to be very sensitive to little jitter issues or latency. People have challenged me to be like, can you actually hear jitter? And I definitely think I can, because I've heard it in my system enough times, and I've been able to get rid of it, even to the point where like certain drivers interacting with each other on my computer, if I get rid of them, you can hear a difference as soon as you fix it. And again, whether that's psychosomatics and I could ABX it, who knows? But I don't know. It's a huge fuck around, and it's a growing area in the hobby, because I think they need another box to sell. So now they're going to start selling people just things that go between their computer and their DAC, which would be a DDC, and then they're going to sell them streamers, and then the streamers aren't going to be good enough, so they're going to put DDCs between their streamers and their DACs. So, and then the streamers and the DDCs are not going to have good enough clocking, so they're going to sell them external clocks. So that's so they're just selling more boxes to people.
That's the rabbit hole.
So basically, people are running out of boxes to buy. That's the
So they're inventing new boxes.
They're inventing new boxes.
And then the other one I forgot one is the upsampling boxes. So with all this like HQ player and stuff, people are buying independent boxes that do upsampling. So Antipodes sell a stack at the moment, which is like it has like a DDC, an upsampler, then it has like a DAC, and it has like, it's like 4 or 5 boxes to basically do what one box should really be able to do competently. But yeah, I don't know, they're just finding new ways to sell stuff to us, but whether or not it's actually an improvement, it's going to take a lot of research and testing yourself and self-enlightenment, you know.
I think I'm just gonna stick with
Use
Spotify on my phone.
Spotify and your phone and the $2 USB cable. See, that's what I'm currently running, and I should probably just be like, this rabbit hole is stupid. I should not go down there, because every time I like spend like 10 grand on a streamer and then inevitably sell it like a week later, or like send it back a week later and be like, I don't like it. Yeah, I'm just like, am I really? What am I searching for? Is what I'm searching for even real? You know, and I guess that goes on to one of the topics we talk about later, is about, you know, where do we stop and why do we stop, and are we ever going to be fulfilled? But that's a very deep and difficult to answer topic.
Just drink one too many coffees, and then you'll get more detail.
Get more detail, and then if I want to smooth out my system, just have one too many shots.
Milk.
You know, have another whiskey, and I'll start dribbling.
There is some merit to that, gentlemen.
Especially the coffee.
The coffee, that's the real audiophile tweak.
Hey, Smod, you've been waiting on me to pipe up about my SOTM?
Yeah, man. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought you might.
I'm getting mosquitoes.
SOTM 200 Ultra, and I've been a happy camper with it. That is paired with the Brooklyn DAC, the original, and them two paired together with the Mac Mini. Those two, you can dial in the flavor of music you want. The Brooklyn has so many capabilities. Is it the best at any one thing? No. Is it the worst? No. But you can dial up music to match your ear no matter what mood you're in, because it has DSP, it has analog volume, digital volume, it has so many different controls. I'm still learning them all. It's just, you know, I start playing with it, and then I'm like, okay, do I want to hear music or do I want to play with my toy? And ultimately, I end up want to hear music, because that's what I'm there for. Time's precious. But the SOTM streamer, it matches. I can adjust a lot of my Brooklyn DAC through Rune, and being able to combine the two of them through Rune and adjustments just makes it so good. Plus, and I'm going to hit a chord here, it does MQA too if you want to hear it. You don't have to, but MQA, I've been a proponent for some of the music. Well, a lot of the music. Some of the music's not as good. And you can dial in a dozen different flavors of the same music if you like. Just depends on which one you like. And that's the hard part. You might find music sounds good MQA for this particular artist, but for another one you have to change your settings. I don't think you're ever going to find a streamer, a DAC, or anything that's going to satisfy you for every kind of music you'll listen to. So there's a point, we were mentioning the rabbit hole, there's a point where you got to say, this is good enough. Is there better? Maybe. And am I going down that rabbit hole like he was doing $10,000 this week, and next week he's got it up for sale? So, and I've been down that hole, and it's exhausting, it's tiresome, it's fun to hear different stuff, but at the end of the day, I want to kick back and listen to good music done well. So I'm not looking to sell any of my gear, especially my DAC or my streamer at this point. Maybe eventually upgrade my Mac Mini, but it's 2012 and it works fine. All it does is host Rune. So it doesn't melt down the sound because it's insulated through USB. And, a couple of tricks you got to do through networking. But outside of that, it's good stuff. And if anybody's got a question, I don't have the manual in front of me, but I can do a lot with it. Who's up next?
Okay, well, so appreciate that, Nick, and yeah, I think that your setup sounds like it would be great. The between the Mac Mini, the SOTM, and you have the Switch too, so I'm sure it's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I do.
yeah, so that's great. I mean, we kind of alluded to this a little bit, so we might as well get into it. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on, starting to slow things down? Eventually, maybe, considering stopping, accumulation or at least slowing down with hunting new things and new gear, and when do you, call it quits and just sit back and just listen to your system? And also, is there some level of maybe uh, lack of interest in hi-fi at some point that maybe spurs that change on? Is there a relationship there? I guess these other topics kind of blend into each other, but I guess they focus on the end, like the eventually slowing down and stopping with the constant tinkering and buying and selling and that kind of thing. So what do you guys think about that? Have you experienced that? What are your thoughts on that?
If you don't mind, I'd like to go. Oh, sorry, Silver.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that there's a point where you realize you have more playlists or less playlists than you do headphones, and you just you need to start enjoying the music, because I don't know, you start to not like you stop looking for music and you're just looking for gear, and I don't know. There's something about that bothered me, so I've been slowing down a lot.
Yeah, if I can go next.
Yeah.
I felt that my pace of gear, the amount of gear that stays in my collection has certainly gone down, but the pace of gear that I buy and end up selling has sort of stayed the same. What I've found is that there's maybe one purchase, or no, two purchases I'm on the, ready to make, and I think I'll be satisfied for quite a while, because I haven't had a moment where I've listened to something and it felt like I was missing anything. I felt so happy with all of these different gears that I have, and there's only maybe one or two sets that need to round out the collection in terms of it matching with my music. But I've definitely noticed that I'm reaching towards the end, or at least I think I am. Who knows? Maybe I'm wearing clown makeup and a clown wig, and I'm just denying myself. But I really think that I've slowed down quite a bit, and the stuff that stayed has definitely stayed for a long, long time. I mean, I was just telling some folks that Moondrop Illumination was an IAM that I had to go through 3 different pairs. I had to go through Mess 2, which I sold after a week. I went through a couple pairs of Dunus. I went through a few sets before I went to Illumination. And then after that, I just kept it, and I still have it. And the same goes true for these other IMs and headphones that I have. So I feel that my burn rate has certainly gone down, and that I'm slowing down, and my accumulation has definitely gone down. And so I think I'm seeing the finish line. I really hope it is a finish line, because I don't want to be talking about this 2 years from now or a year from now, saying that, I think I'm almost there.
I'd put money on it, Co, that we'll be having this conversation in 2 years in a different way. But anyway.
Yep.
Time will tell, mate. I think it's a bit like life. It's a journey. It's ever evolving, and I don't think you're ever really done until you're at a point where you physically can't keep exploring the hobby. Where it could be just trying to find new music again, but then the gear evolves, and I don't know if there ever is a point, where you just stop. And like I said, with all this stuff that's changing in the digital realm and the clocking and blah, 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 and analog has been around for forever, and it's a constant engineering, evolution. You go talk to someone like Parker about how much has changed in the last 5 years in turntables, and he'll talk endlessly about how some things have changed a tiny bit, but a lot of things just still haven't evolved that much, and there's still definitely room for improvement, and with the introduction of augmented reality and stuff, I think we're going to be experiencing music in different ways and maybe directly into our brains, etc. down the track. So who the hell knows what's going to happen there? Whether a more expensive USB cable sounds better when it's plugged into your head, who knows?
I mean, in terms of improvement for vinyl, I think we've yet to see some progress. I mean, I've yet to see an MQA certified vinyl player, so we definitely have a ways to go.
Okay, slow down on the wine there, bro. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if it's ever finished. I think it's a bit of a journey, and I think everyone has a different personal journey. And if you're deep in, if you're an audiophile, I almost feel like it's a curse for life. You know, you kind of, whether you leave the hobby, you tend to always come back, or always tend to go back to exploring music and find yourself trolling classifieds and talking to people, being drawn to the community and wanting to talk about, you know, the gear and, you know, what something sounds like, or if something interesting pops up and you just want to read about it, whether you'll ever hear it or not, or if there's a show nearby, you might be like, oh yeah, I just want to go and have a listen again. But I don't know, for me it's a for life thing, and I don't think I'll ever be done, if that's to say anything. Like, I might stop spending money on my system and stop changing my system for periods, but I don't think I'll ever be. It's like, I'm a completionist, and I feel like this hobby is very anti-completionist. I don't think there is an end to the hobby. I don't think there is a green fairy at the end. I think there's just, it is what it is, and it's, your mood plays a really big role. Like Juan was saying, you know, before he left, you know, psychosomatics and how we're feeling when we listen to music probably impacts it more than the gear half the time. But when you have good gear and you're feeling great and it sounds good, we all know that feeling when you're sitting back, or, you know, you're getting goosebumps, or you're hearing music and you're reading about the artist's struggle, and, you know, you can hear the emotion, and it almost brings you to tears, and you're sitting there going, well, this is why we do it, you know, because we're addicted to loving the artistry of music and the technology that makes it sound as good as we possibly can make it. So I don't think I'll ever be done.
I think for me, you know, that struck a chord with me when you talked about the emotional aspect of it, and for me, certainly, I think that's a marker that I use personally, where when I'm constantly emotionally moved by the system, that to me means that I have a system that I can potentially, you know, be happy with for my whole life. But having said that, you know, is it possible that, you know, there's some other tweak that I still want to try, and something kind of comes up that some dealer shows me? Yeah, I think there is. So I agree that it is a kind of a never-ending curse that we're afflicted by, and, you know, I think maybe probably most of us are not able to get away from it to the point where we never upgrade again or never touch anything again. For me personally, I think there was a period of time where I was really, you know, more bullish and aggressive and trying to kind of build things and get everything into my system and but, you know, pouring money into my system. And then now I'm in a cooling off phase where I'm just kind of enjoying the system and trying not to think about it as much. So that's how it is for me. But yeah, I think what you said, Zach, makes sense about, you know, the fact that it's never really over. Anybody else with thoughts on that? On the or the other kind of concept is, if you ever kind of fallen out of hi-fi and kind of lost a bit of interest in it, and then what got you back into it? Maybe you're still have lost interest, but I'm guessing not if you're in this podcast.
I think that's actually me right now. At least I've lost interest in the fact that I don't really have anything I want to buy right now.
Right.
I'm just listening, which I suppose is what we're supposed to be doing anyway. But I used to always want to try something new, and now I seem to be doing that a lot less. I just want to listen to new music, and I'm having trouble finding new and enjoyable music. It just seems difficult to find music that rings with me.
I got some advice, Silverish. The other day I broke my phone, and I borrowed my girlfriend's work phone, which has never used YouTube, so it didn't have all the algorithms that are locked to me. And I searched up one of the bands I liked, and then YouTube just started doing the algorithm thing. And I was like, all this music I'd never heard before. But I feel like sometimes when the algorithms know you too well, they feed you stuff that they know you already like. and you don't find a lot of new stuff. So yeah, grab a new phone and let the algorithm take you for a spin. I found a lot of good music the other day, just driving around the place, listening to, letting YouTube just like flick between songs.
I'm sure I'll try something equivalent, like an incognito tab with YouTube or something.
Yeah, that probably worked too. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, it just happened to me randomly, and I'm like, how's this algorithm not doing what it normally does? And then I realized it didn't have any of my like cached metadata to program it to do what it usually does.
Yeah, let's try that. Problem with Tidal and Cobas is when they try to throw you new music, it's really just it's a lot of stuff that already exists that's just has new releases or new high res releases or
I don't really like the Qbuzz and Tidal algorithms and all their libraries that much. I think Spotify is probably the winner for the algos and the uh, range of different music there. There's also a few websites where you can plug in 3 songs that you like, and then they'll spit out 50 songs you might like, and I just like to flick through those and see where it takes me.
I'll have to try that.
I think I did
You
get a
okay?
bit disenchanted with music a few times. I bought a tube preamp a while ago, and I was using it in a headphone system, and I was trying all this stuff to make this other piece of gear that sounded bad sound decent. And I thought there was, I'd read good reviews about the item, so I kept trying to make it work. And
I don't know how to
I
do
kind of
that.
just got a bit, sick of it. I didn't want to listen to my system anymore because it was just annoying me that I couldn't get this to sound right. And I had a lot of troubles. I was in an apartment and we had really dodgy power, and I was running a cyclotron style amplifier. So like I could hear like if somebody was like using a toaster in one of the other apartments, so if someone was welding like down the road, you could like hear it like through the amplifier. Like you could hear like random up and down hissing sounds. I tried everything to fix ground loops and the rest of it, and I actually got to the point where listening to music was like more me trying to fix the flaws than actually just sitting back and enjoying the music. I was enjoying the music more in my car than I was at home, with my system. So I don't know. That's the only few times that I've gotten pissed off with audio and like almost wanted to just kick the bucket and throw it away. But when you do fix those things and get on top of it and you have a few good moments, I think it's a good enough fix to make you keep coming back.
Can I type and watch?
1 second.
Oh yeah, I've had little issues
Alright,
with
stop.
SPDIF sometimes where it keeps cutting out, and then I fix it, but it takes forever.
See all
And if I don't fix it, I don't want to listen to music.
Yeah.
We have 500.
What about you, Smod? Have you ever wanted to
he's
throw the
asking
system
you.
out the window?
I think that there's been times where I've kind of been all hi-fi'd out. I've been listening to a lot of music and for maybe several days, and then I just kind of wanted to stop listening for some time and do other things. And luckily, there are so many other things to do, and I have other hobbies. Watching shows and just exercising and I'm starting to try to get back into flute playing. Because I'm an amateur player, so I get into that. So that's the nice thing is that there are so many other things that obviously that many of us can do, and then when we come back to hi-fi, then it's kind of feels fresh again and feels like you're getting back into it and that kind of thing. Lately I've been trying to kind of study crypto and learn more about crypto too. So it's nice to have that ability to go to other hobbies and other things. You mentioned about a bunch of other music you discovered. So maybe before we finish it off with Co's Corner, maybe we can go around and just if everyone here could just give off a couple recommendations for either albums or artists that they're enjoying. I want to start that off by saying that right now I've been kind of looking for synthwave, and I found a really good artist I like called Hello Meteor. And that, if you search on Tidal or whatever you use, should pop up. And very consistently good albums that I really enjoy. That one. And then one other one would be Tokyo Rose. There's an album that is really cool. The album, I think I mentioned this actually already, but the album art's really cool. It's like this guy who's like in a firefight, and he's like falling out of his car, and there's like blood on his hand, and he has a gun. He has like one of his eyes is like a laser. It's like very very 80s kind of sci-fi 80s kind of art, and yeah, that album's also awesome. But yeah, Tokyo Rose is fairly famous, so probably a lot of people know about him. But Hello Meteor, check that out for synthwave. Zach, what about you? Any you want to share some of the people you've discovered when you had that algorithm switch? Or anyone else?
Yeah, I can go.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been enjoying Jackie Chan's album. His most recent release, I believe it's called "I'm Still Jackie Chan," released in 2021. You can find it on Apple Music. It should be on Spotify as well. And for those who aren't familiar, Jackie Chan, he is an action star, I'm sure as many of us know, but he's a widely celebrated singer, especially in China. And he has an incredible voice, just fantastic voice.
Jackie
so
Chan,
Jackie Chan, yeah.
not like the Jackie Chan, right?
Oh yes, the Jackie Chan. Absolutely. I think he's a wonderful singer. And yeah, his new album, released 2021, Apple Music, Spotify, it should be on every major streaming service. I've been enjoying that quite a bit on my Mason Fable sound. It's really fabulous album. Very simple. It's the arrangement for the instruments. It's all in Mandarin, by the way. So you're not gonna. I don't understand much of it, but it's actually it's really I guess heart pulling, if that makes sense. It's very romantic, and it's quite beautiful. And to me, it speaks that even though you may not speak the language or understand the language completely, you can still feel the raw texture and the raw emotion that's coming from it. You can still connect to the music, and I think it's a fun album to listen to. And then the other thing, for those who are into gaming, Forza Horizon 5 has come out, and with it, playlists have been released on Apple Music, Spotify, of the Forza Horizon 5 soundtrack. So I've been enjoying that quite a bit with my Legend X. It's a great party track list. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great playlist to do your workouts and do cardio to. So yeah.
Sorry, Smod, I didn't realize I was muted when you were talking to me because I was talking back to you. I'm like, why is he ignoring me?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was muted. I was listening to Tora on my girlfriend's phone, and then the algorithm went to Toramusic's their playlist. So Tora, Tora. They're kind of like an indie electro, a bit like SOHN, SOHN, which is another band I really like. I've been listening to. He did a live performance with a big orchestra with the Metropole Orchestra, and it is an unbelievable recording. So that's SOHN. Probably not a lot of your style. The guy has an amazing voice, but yeah, it's just just interesting synthy electro, but then like with really nice male vocals as well. So I've been listening to a lot more male vocals lately. I listened to a guy called Lo-Fang as well, Lo space Fang. He did an album a while ago. I think it's called Blue, and I've just adored that album for forever. Does a few covers of like When We're Fire, and stuff like that. Does a cello play of that as well. He's got an incredible voice. Unfortunately, he's like gotten into drugs and moved to Ibiza and doesn't make music anymore. He's like on a psychedelic kind of trying to improve his life, but I kind of liked his music when he was more of a normal person. But yeah, it's from that you can probably find what kind of stuff I'm listening to between Lo-Fang, SOHN, and Tora. But it's like a lot of indie electro weird stuff. I like James Blake and Rufus. Rufus's new album dropped, and I've been enjoying that quite a lot, which is a really good kind of like session or driving kind of music. It's very chill, if you will. Flora Cash, Pale J. Been listening to a bit of everything. I've had some, as far as the audio file stuff goes, I've been listening to a bit of Jan Tiersen. Has some interesting recordings, a lot of string stuff. And then another really good recording is Fink meets the Royal Concert. It's a live recording from Fink. I'm not a huge Fink fan, but this live recording is really raw. It's really well done. I love the strings. I love the timbre of the guitars and stuff and the drums, and they're fantastic. So
Something good.
really nice recording to listen to, that one. Fink meets the Royal. I can't say that next bit. Concertbow Orchestra. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, it's a live recording from Fink, but meets the Royal. So anyway, have a listen to those. The podcast will be uploaded later to YouTube, and if you want to check out what any of the things said, just listen back. And if Smod really wants to go the distance, I'll send him some links.
Fantastic. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if you could send me some links, I can definitely put them in the description of the show.
I like this one. This one's light and I can work with it.
All right. So, any other recommendations before we go to Close Corner?
Admiral Labor, kind of a jazz flamingo type of artist. Outstanding. He's not new, but I've recently been revisiting him from a long time ago. I re-stumbled across him. I was like, oh yeah, Admiral Labor. He's really amazing. A lot of picking of the guitar, a lot of fast-paced. He mixes it up, but it's a really interesting music. It's not something I grew up with, so it's really enjoyable.
Awesome.
That's my new artist.
Awesome. So, Ko, you want to take over with the Co's Corner?
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier, I'm going to start off on some low-end gear, so I can tease you guys a little bit.
Okay.
So I jumped on the Odyssey Black Friday sale. I don't know if any of you guys did. They had some interesting deals, but I picked up a Penrose X for Xbox, and it's a great sounding set, but there's one niggle I should warn you guys about, is that you get this suction cup feeling of the planar membrane, between the planar membrane and your ear, and it's a bit disconcerting. You do get used to it, but it's an interesting set. I'm glad I picked it up. It's a decent set, and at $150, I definitely recommend it. Now, I got Meze Lyric in. That's a close-back. It's a new close-back from Meze. It's a close-back planar magnetic headphone made for portable use. It comes with a nice carrying case, and I guess it's tuned more towards the elite side of things. So you don't get that dark, lush, warm Empyrean flavor. You instead get leaner, a bit brighter. You do get a bit of sharpness, a little bit zing at the top end. That has taken some purchasers by surprise, and you may see a few units up for sale on HeadFi at an okay discount. Sorry, Nick, could you just mute temporarily?
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Meze Lyric, I would absolutely recommend it if you're looking for something semi-portable. Doesn't require much power to drive. It's actually quite decent. And
How is it compared to the VC?
So I prefer VC.
Right.
But yeah, I would say Lyric fills in the gaps with VC. So if you had to choice between Lyric or VC, you buy VC first, because it has that sort of that 3D positioning of sound. Lyric does have a wide sound stage, and it's quite phenomenal for a closeback. But you don't get that sense of, I guess, roundness or sphere to the stage. And of course, the DD, the way that DD hits for the Verite closed, I just much prefer the timbre from a dynamic driver than a planar. But they're both excellent sets. I would say Verite closed and Lyric, and I think you're done in terms of closebacks. Yeah. And then moving on to the Dapp P6 Pro Obsidian. So some of you may know that I had a P6 Pro earlier this year, and the niggle I had with that Dapp was that it was a bit darker. Well, not darker. I guess it was. It was warmer, relaxed, a little bit dark. It was a bit too much. It was too much relax-fi on all the music I was playing. So I had to sell that, and Luxury and Precision, they decided to respond to customers' demand. The customers wanted a bit more lively, a little bit leaner sort of sounding Dapp, And before the P6 Pro was originally released, they had a player called the P6. And the P6 had Luxury and Precision's original tuning, which was vocal-centric, a little bit more neutral, and a bit more energetic. And that's what customers wanted from the P6 Pro line. But instead he used a more lusher tuning, which would have worked for a wider variety of music, but a lot of Chinese audiophiles much preferred the original P6. So in response, he came out with the P6 Obsidian, which has the original P6 tuning. Sorry, the P6 Pro Obsidian. And I've been using it for the past couple of days, and I absolutely love it. I think it corrects all the issues I had sonically with the P6 Pro Black. Of course, the big downside is that you get that absolute terrible software. But you know what? It has LDAC. It sounds wonderful, and it's quite portable. So I think this will be my go-to Dapp until the 7th generation of players are released. I think Music Tech did a brief promotion for the P6 Pro Obsidian, but if you reach out to Music Tech and you refer to their previous promotion, he may cut you a break. I'm not sure anybody listening is in the market for an R2R Dapp of that caliber, but if you are, Music Tech has free demos, so go for it. Otherwise, yeah, if you want it, and if you don't, then you don't. P6 Pro and the Luxury and Precision Dapps are really for those who don't give a crap about Android or features or apps or Spotify or LDAC or all this fancy stuff. If you just want basic but excellent music playback, and if you want LDAC, then you're done, and you'll put up with all the other crap that Luxury and Precision throws your way. And yeah, excellent buys, and I look forward to what the future has in store.
All right, excellent. All right, guys.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Forgot to mention. I did a brief write-up on the P6 Pro Obsidian. It's very short. It'll take you like 5 minutes to read if you care. So I'll put it in general, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was a pleasure as always, and until next time, be well and enjoy the music.
Cheers.